Howdy, my name is Callum, also known as Northern Dice, and today I'm going to be giving you a review of the party game Hues and Cues. It's a 3 to 10 player party game relying entirely on people's ability to convey colours in different ways that takes about 20 minutes to play. It is not colourblind friendly, as you can obviously see from the start, but when you do get into it, if you do not have that initial obstacle, it can be a lot of fun, but it also sparks up a lot of conversation, including that age-old one, is this way I see red the same as the way you see red? Now before we begin, I do want to just be honest and say that this game was sent to us by the OP Games purely for the basis of unbiased review. We aren't paid for the content we create, but this game was sent to us for that basis. As always, all opinions are our own. Hues and Cues is a party game for 3 to 10 players that takes about 20 minutes to play and is really easy to pick up, play and put away. The setup here is for 4 players, as you can see by the 4 different player colours. If I wanted it to be for more players, I would just get more tokens out and add the cones appropriately. Every player has 2 cones for guessing and 1 to track their score, and the game runs over player turns, where every player gets 2 turns going around in a circle before the game ends. On a player's turn, what they do is they pick up one of these cue cards, and then they will need to get everybody to guess one of those colours on there. Now, the catch there is that they need to be able to get them to guess it in under 3 words, in essence. The first clue can be only 1 word, and there are some restrictions with that. I mean, for this one I could easily just say brown, completely against the rules. You are not allowed to say any specific colour names. You are not allowed to reference anything in the room either. It needs to be something that is going to get people to try and guess it. So if we pick a different one and have a look at the difference on there, again, I could not say green, I could not say purple. But what I can say are words that will get people to try and guess in that general area. So an example here for this one, I may want to say coffee. And with that, if I'm red player, I've said coffee, so I won't place my cones out, but everyone else will have a guess. Green player may say, oh, I'm thinking it's actually quite here. Purple might say, oh, I'm actually thinking it's there. And yellow is a bit of a lunatic and has their coffee looking like this. At that point, red player can say, I'm happy with that, let's score. But the issue is, red player scores both for accurate guesses and only accurate guesses. Everyone else guesses and gets points based on how close they are to that exact spot. So if we were going to continue with that one, remembering that this is completely kept private, no one is allowed to see it, and everything is entirely based on people's ability to guess and your ability to get people to guess. I've then got 2 words I can say on my second clue, but I don't have to use both of them. I could just say 1 word again, and I might want to say swamp or mud. But I could also then instead say milk chocolate, or I could say dirty water. And then everybody gets to place their second cone out, and they will score for both cones. Now green was feeling incredibly confident and is just going to decide to just double down and place right next to it. Purple is probably going to go, oh, actually dirty water is probably more here. And then yellow is going to say, actually, you know what, I think I've got this now, and place it dead there. And at that point, the scoring is done using this strange little device, which has 1s on the outside and 2s on the inside. So what the red player would then do is reveal to everybody what the location is, and for us it was C3. So they will need to place it so this scoring rectangle is exactly over C3 in the centre. So they would come down and place it like so. At which point players will then toss up their scores. Now for any little cones around the outside of that square, there would be 1 point. For any on the outside of the centre part would be 2 points, and any perfect guessers would get 3 points. So in example here, yellow player would get 1, 2, 3, 4, and be able to move up the track accordingly. 1, 2, 3, 4. Green player would also get 4 for 2 on the inside, so that would be 1, 2, 3, 4. And purple also would get 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now red only scores for the people on the inside, and they score 1 point for everybody on the inside. So they get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So they'd be on 10. At that point the turn would be over for that player, so everything would be removed everybody would take back their cones. The card would be discarded and you move on to the next player. And everybody gets 2 turns at being the person giving the clues. So it'd go round once, round a second time, and then whomever is on the top of this little score track would win. Now, of course, with it being a bit of a party game, there is nothing to stop you from just going round and round and round. There's also nothing to stop you with having 10 players from just going round once, or with having less players going round 3 times. But it is whomever is the best at guessing those clues who is the winner. And sometimes there can be a little bit of an issue with people's perception of colour. And that's not even getting into the colour blindness thing of this. An example of this one. I have played a game and it was a colour very similar to this, and the clue we were given was mint as example. So everybody went for, it's on U20, which is right down here on the bottom. Some people chose to go a little bit more wild with their guesses for what they perceived mint to be. So if we go back to U20, we're looking at that one and we had people guessing around the area. So let's say red player was very good and said, back here. Purple player said, oh, you know, it's probably, I don't know, over here. Let's say green player really just lost the plot and we could have mint for them being quite a deep blue, quite a spicy blue, almost like a spearmint. At that point, the yellow player needed to rectify and have a good consideration as to what they'd said and was it wrong. Now, when we played it, people's perceptions of colours and their interpretations of what words mean to impact those colours was a big thing. Which brings us on to another rule. You cannot say things like deep or low or intense. So they didn't go for anything like that, and they decided for this lovely looking green that we would have anemic peas. And anemic, you know, means quite lacking of. So we had people then going all the way over there. When we discussed it, it got a real good conversation going and we had a good laugh about it, but it really drove in the fact that as much as this is a completely heavily accessible party game, people perceive colours and determine what is a colour in what way in very different ways. And we also found that quite often these colours look exactly like their square. An example of that one, but then they also, if you just move them around there, look quite similar to a lot of the colours around it, to a very, very stretching point. And it's really, really hard to try and get that colour on that black background to be transferred verbally to that colour on there, surrounded by all its similar colours. That said, it was still an excellent amount of fun. It's incredibly easy and accessible, and there is a lot of scope for this to just be picked up, played and put back down as a party game should be. So Hues and Cues is an incredibly easy to grasp game, so much so that it is almost a 30-second explanation on how to play and maybe one demonstration. There's not a lot of risk to it, it's a very low stakes game, it is pick up and play and you don't need to know all of the Dulux colour charts in order to win. Where it becomes tricky is in people's perceptions of colours, as I stated in the explanation how to. Not a lot of people will agree on what actually purple is. In the same way, no people will agree on what blue is. And then when you start to get past those secondary and primary colours and into the tertiary colours, you're getting really messy. And I think that's where the game really draws its strength from, the fact that people can perceive things in such magical and wonderful ways. My always go-to example when I want to explain to people how to play is this top corner up here, which is the brown section of coffee and mud and other brown things that people will no doubt use as clues. Because people perceive the things in different ways, it means that people will give different explanations for those. Another one, of course, is going to be orange juice or oranges themselves. Now you can't say orange because it's a colour, but you could easily say clementine or you could say satsuma. It builds in that conversation and people's perceptions, and the fact that you get opportunities to give 2 clues means that you can really refine it. And there's lots of different ways to do that, and we've seen some really, really interesting techniques on it. And there's no real guide in the rulebook or how-to on how to really score those points, but we've played it where some people have, I'm going to have to actually get off my knees for this bit, gone with a clue of, I don't know, clear water, and they've ended up in sort of the bluish area. But they actually want to bring us further up here, so they've then given a completely polarising clue to try and close that middle point. In the example from what you see here, they may say regal, which for me I'd imagine almost like a big purple flowing cape or gown off of a king or queen, so I'd go up here. But if I then didn't go deep enough, they may want to then go, oh, actually, my second clue is going to be midnight dusk, and I'll think, oh, like a really, really deep purple. They may be wanting me to drag down there, they may be wanting me to close that gap. And it brings in a lot of conversation on that, how do people perceive that colour and how is it able to be conveyed? But the big thing from this I do want to get across is, it is incredibly easy access. There is absolutely no learning curve, and it is one that is superb for parties because it isn't reliant on that opinion basis like many party games are. It completely removes that, oh, your joke was the funniest, that was my humour, you've got the in-joke with me, that a lot of those comedy party games really rely on. In the same way, it is more about people's ability to convey those words, but in the right way to get points. And because its point system is based on you doing well because other people do well, there's no way to screw each other over either. Which I think is perfect for any party game, but one that's reliant on that communication especially. Now the big barrier to this game, as I've already said, is going to be that colour blindness. If you've got any level of colour blindness, chances are a lot of this game is going to be completely inaccessible. I personally don't suffer with colour blindness, so I can't speak for those who do, but I know full well that oranges and greens and reds are a really big blurry area where things start to fade into brown for some people, so it may not be as applicable to all groups. And I think in any game about colour, you've always got that hurdle that this is one that's inescapable. It's not like anything could have been done, in my opinion, to really nullify that. I don't really feel as though there would be a colour-friendly way to play this, although I have had a quick browse on some forums and some people have said I have played this with colourblind people, they have done really well. It swings and roundabouts for people's different experiences with it, but for me, I'd say that is the biggest hurdle in this. But again, because of the nature of the game, it can't be avoided. The other hurdle, which I have noticed, is life experience. Now, it seems like a bit of an abstract thing, and I'm not talking about people who haven't got any experience in picking out colours for their kitchen. I'm talking more experience in different things in the world to be able to relate these colours to. So, in example, if I were to pick up this red and say a rose, people would always think, roses, red, yep, absolutely perfect, easy peasy. But let's say I didn't get that. Let's say I was playing with someone who was a florist and they said petunias or marigolds or something along those lines. Some people are going to be lost in that. But it's to their advantage, and you've got to almost know the group you're with. Life experience is a big thing of any game where you've got to try and communicate things freely without a guide other than the colour you're given. But I don't know. I love this game for the fact that it does have an advantage for those with life experience, but also then people can get a bit crafty with it. You might say really rubbish tea, and being a British bloke, I love my cups of tea, and for me a rubbish tea would be one that's overly milky, so I'd be going to this really lovely colour and going as far into the white zone as possible to ruin it. If I was playing with someone who wasn't a tea drinker, they might not have a clue what rubbish tea is, so they might be going up here into the good zone, and it becomes a bit of a mess in terms of that communication. But I think because it's a party game, as much as you'll try to stringently stick to the rules, pull no facial expressions, give no cues, I think the eye rolls, the huffs, and the absolute disgusted look on your face when they say that pure black is the perfect tea will be enough for them to realise they've messed up. But it brings in that party element of having a good time and having a good laugh, which I think is to its advantage as well. But in terms of hurdles, life experience, could be. Colour blindness, absolutely. As for component quality, everything is really well made. The board is incredibly sturdy. The cards, they feel really, really nice and thick. They've got a nice little gloss to them. The colours are really easy to see on them. The colour on the board, gorgeous. This thing, which I had no idea how to use when I was looking at images before even playing this game, is really nicely made, and it's really self-explanatory once you know how to do it. These little cones, really nicely made. Issue with them is the colours. Now, even ignoring colour blindness, I have one little tiny problem with these, and it's this pink. Because if I put this pink next to this red, for me, they're almost indistinguishable. And then if I combine that with the orange, what I've got is three colours that are incredibly similar to each other. It doesn't cause that much of a problem in play. In scoring, it can sometimes cause a bit of a guffaw in that actually that's my piece, move it across. I think it's just one of those tiny, tiny little elements where there's lots of colours. You've got them all here. These could have been anything. You've got black, white, grey, blue, green, but then you don't have like a dark green or a light green, or there's really easy to see colours. A dark blue or a light blue. What we've got is a pink, really light red, really light orange. And for me, in my eyes, it could be a tiny bit of colour blindness, I don't know, but they all phase together and it doesn't make it very easy to see. Especially when you place them in the sort of same area where they need to be, and suddenly they just disappear in my eye line. They are exactly the same colour as far as I can see. That is my only small problem with this component. Everything else in the game is so gorgeously and stunningly made that you'd almost expect it to be part of a much bigger budget game and not just a party game that takes 20 minutes, because it's so well done. The rulebook as well. I commented on a rulebook last time I did a review, and I feel like I've got to do it again because I've got into a habit, but it's so easy to understand. And it's... A page, and it's done. And it explains literally anything. It even explains the process really well with the draw a card, one word clue, first guess, two word clue, second guesses. There is nothing you can get wrong in this because of how it's done. And then of course they've got a black page on the back because they have nothing else to say either. The OP smashed it out of the park with component quality, apart from those little colours, and absolutely nailed those rules. Dead impressed. Really, really impressed. So would I recommend it? And I'm always going to go into that realm of, if you're a big budget gamer looking for those big miniatures, not this. I'm going to scrap all of that. If you ever need a party game and you don't want to go for those ones that are comedy based on the in-jokes and the he's always going to pick him, and you don't want to do any social deduction, Hues and Cues. It's just explaining colours to other people, and I have had such a blast with my non-gaming family with this, and they've loved every second of it, to the point where it was a rolling train of can we play again, can we play again, can we play again, and of course I took full advantage and introduced them to other games which weren't as successful because, as I said, non-gaming, but this one was an absolute smash hit because of how easy access it is, but also how beautiful it is. It doesn't have that vibe of it's an old, boring party game where you've got to write things or you've got to match words. It is vibrant, it is beautiful on the table, it pops, it's so easy to access. It's the whole package. And I guess because the theme is colours, unless of course you are colourblind or you are really against matching colours, it's a game for everybody. And I mean, it says that it is for 8+. I think you could easily play this with 5+, 6+. Maybe a bit younger might have that lack of life experience, but I think it's one that could be played by most ages, and you could easily bash it out in 20 minutes. You could even push it up to an hour if you just want to keep playing and having those good lives and good times. As always, thank you ever so much for sticking around. This has been Hues and Cues by the OP Games. I would highly recommend this. Until next time, I'll catch you later.